This is the Built Different podcast with Duane and William.
All right, welcome to another episode of Built Different, where we talk about material defects and home inspections that we do here at Morrison Plus Property Inspections. And today we're going to start going over a report that one of our more thorough inspectors has basically written up on an inspection he did out in the Valley. This one was in Valley Village. I believe it was late August. And we really liked the detail on this. And so we thought you'd be interested in what a real good, thorough home inspection report looks like. And let's get started. So,
all right.
Do you have the report up, William?
Yes, I do.
All right. So just this cover page. Cover page is pretty good. You can tell he used a drone to take a picture of the house from the street. And this house shows that it's on a corner and just really enhances the property. You can kind of see all the vegetation that goes around. You can even see the inspector standing there on the sidewalk if you look close enough. But I like the angle of it. I always tell inspectors, don't take a picture of the house straight on while you're standing across the street, because if your camera's tilted at all, it might look like the house is sinking, and sometimes the lens bows a little bit, which makes it look weird. So kind of an angled shot like this really is the way to do it. Especially you can tell this house is on a street that's pretty well sloped. So,
yep.
Then there's a nice table of contents. Then you have the introductory page that gives you a key on what the different things in the report mean. Like it describes what inspected means, what not inspected really means, and what recommendation means, as well as not present. And just kind of gives you a key to the report and the terms that are in there. This house, you were mentioning, William, was estimated at 61 to 70 years old. So why doesn't the inspector actually say this house is built in 1970? Or why doesn't it say it's 62 years old? Why isn't he more accurate with that?
Well, typically they take 2 to 3 years to build a house.
And
Also, it's not always true when they say the house was built, because I've inspected so many homes that were rebuilt in the year provided.
Right. And so we're just taking information from whoever's ordering the inspection. We're not going down to the county and verifying the county records and when permits were pulled or when the final signatures were signed and the house was first sold, or the year that it was actually built and what code goes to that year and whatnot. So we just put a range of an approximation, and that's why that's there that way. Then he has in the report, the very next thing is just the summary, the general summary, and that's all the recommendations. So the software is very useful here. It will pull out all recommendations that are in the report, so you have a shorter summary, and you can just read what's wrong with the house rather than actually read the full report. But some inspectors won't even do that because people will just read the summary and they don't read the actual full report. So we do. We put a summary in because our summaries are pretty long and detailed anyway. So, but we're going to skip over the summary because we want to talk about the pictures in the report today. Here we have 6 overview photos, and I think that's fantastic. This house has a concrete tile roof. We weren't sure by the photos if it was a clay tile or concrete tile, but after we looked kind of closer and kind of conferred with each other, we determined that it is a concrete tile roof, which is what the inspector said it was. And he's using a drone to inspect the roof, which is an enhancement. Got to pay extra for that. He's a commercially certified drone license, unmanned air vehicle.
Unmanned aircraft. It's a remote control pilot.
Remote control pilot, but it's an unmanned air vehicle.
Yep. Actually,
UAV, right? And he used that to inspect the roof, and you have to have a commercial license to do it. And that license is essentially a certification provided by the FAA.
Yeah.
Because you're in airspace, and so
it's a Part 107 license.
Part 107, and it's required if you're going to be using drones for commercial use. There's a lot of home inspectors out there that violate this law, and it's very dangerous to fly a drone if you don't have the right training and certification for it. You can run into power lines. Everybody's heard about drones, landing on somebody or damaging property and things like that. And so this license is crucial. If your inspector doesn't have it, you shouldn't be using him to fly a drone because the buyer is liable for what that inspector does. The last thing you want to do is have a home inspector that doesn't have a certification working for you hit a police helicopter or something, right? Or a fixed wing aircraft up in the sky and somebody gets it, you know, something really bad happens. And so not going to talk about that anymore, but in this particular case, the professional inspection's happening. All the qualifications, certifications are there, and you can see the nice photos there of the roof, which, you know, he did a really good job here. I like that he has pretty much every section of the roof in the photo. So let's move on down to item 1.0, roof coverings. Here he takes photos of the soffits and comments on stains. And so that first photo there, you can just see water stains. It looks like maybe there was a termite inspector that came out and did some Bondo work to the fascia board. And when he did that, he just kind of put a Band-Aid on it, right? It didn't fix the problem. And so now it's starting to leak more, and that's going to have to be fixed at the source, I think.
Well, they definitely repainted this house not too long ago, so I think you're spot on.
Yep. And then there's some other photos here of the inspector talking about underlayment being deteriorated and showing that there's some wood shake shingles still underneath the concrete tiles and whatnot. He really went into detail on his assessment of the exterior roof coverings here. So very good job there to Ali.
Yeah, it looks like he picked up a roofing tile to get under.
Yeah, he did. He probably was standing on a ladder and did that, and shouldn't be putting concrete tiles over old wood shake shingles.
Oh.
They should have tore that off and went the extra yard there, but that's not even extra. That's just a minimum. So if I'm a homeowner, I'm going to want to know that. Down to the next comment, 1.03 here, he has a comment we put in the report fairly often, and that's vegetation or a tree overhanging the roof, and recommended cutting back the tree.
Yep.
If you know, that's something that inspectors should be putting in there. I notice a lot of inspectors overlook it, but if the tree limb falls down, it can damage your roof.
Exactly.
And even if it's just kind of like brushing the shingles or the tiles, it can.
Well, most of the time it does damage the roof.
There you go. There you go, right? And so, you know, it's expensive to have your trees trimmed. And so I understand why people don't do it. I mean, to have my trees trimmed in the front yard, they charge like $3,000-$4,000, you know, and we don't do that every year, but, you know, every few years we'll actually have them come out and have them do it. And so if you can't afford to do that and you got trees, you should be, you know, getting a chainsaw or calling somebody in your family and get some help and trim your stuff back.
It's funny that you say that because you don't even have a tile roof.
I have but I keep my trees trimmed too. So, all right. So let's go down to 1.3. There's a line item here should be in pretty much all home inspection reports, gutters and downspouts. This is a pretty common thing to find, and he does a pretty good job here. He takes 2 pictures, and he writes up that the downspout that kicks away from the home is been pinched, crushed, or it's restrictive. He says the kickout's restricted. That's a big deal. It might not seem like it's that big of a deal, but it really is, because if anything gets in there and it clogs up that downspout, that water can fill all the way back up to the top of that, where that rain gutter is, where the roof, where it's attached to the roof, and can start dripping water all in, deteriorating your fascia boards. It can potentially, on some homes, even get into the walls. I've heard horror stories about that. And then this other one here, there's just a lack of a downspout. It's just a kick out right at the gutter.
Yeah.
So I think they may need to redo that, because they probably don't want a downspout. Those look like newer windows, and they probably don't want a downspout blocking the view out of the windows, and that's why that's not there. But anyway, good job on the inspector here to note that.
No, I'm surprised someone hasn't invented like a pretty beefy steel kick out for downspouts that
you would think, right? Or something decorative that looks pretty, right?
Yeah, because whenever you have a kick out in the middle of a walkway, it's always crushed.
Right. And when kickouts aren't even supposed to go into a walkway, but
well, you know, people walk around their house. So.
You know, there's an idea on this one. They could just put like one of those decorative chains on it, you know, or water, or the ones that have like the bells, the buckets that cascade down. All right, let's go to the next category here. Let's talk about attics. He put 3 attic photos in here, William. Very helpful. when we review reports for new inspectors wanting to get certified, a lot of times they don't put photos in, and it's so frustrating because it's like, did you really go in the attic? We don't know, you know? And on the other side of it, it really does provide a lot of value to the report, because how many home buyers actually go into the attic and look at the attic before they buy the house, much less move into the house? If not 6 months after, or even 2 years after they move into the house, they still maybe never even go up into the attic. And so, you know, you're paying good money for a home inspection report. It'd be nice to have some photos to see what's going on up there.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And this is an attic that looks like it has a lot of debris in it, and the insulation was replaced, but not done all too well.
The attic could definitely use some maintenance, that's for sure. It's pretty wild up there. So,
and you can see right here, 2.4. They have a lot of debris from the old roof.
yes, you can see that, like asphalt shingles or asphalt debris. Just, I mean, they just dumped it right into the attic when they tore it off. Right, so not good. Definitely want to clean that up. All right, let's move on to exteriors. So again, 3 cover photos. This time they're in different orientation, and you notice that? See how they're vertical rather than horizontal? And I'm actually was happy to see that, because this inspector takes such great pride in his reporting. He takes the extra time in the evening to turn the photos, take the photos the right way when he's walking around the house, because he's thinking about what he's doing. And the reason these are vertical is because there's not a lot of room on the sides of the property. And he wanted to get as much in the photo that he could to show a representation of what's going on the exteriors. And even more on that, most inspectors don't take pictures of the backyard or the side yards. They'll take a picture of the front, and then that's all you get.
Yeah, I'm guilty of only taking a picture of the back of the house.
Well, that's still better than most inspectors, though. You have a picture of the front and picture of the back. This guy has a picture as he was going around, the left side, the rear, and the right side. Yeah. And it's, you know, it just shows that you have a professional inspector when you're starting to see documentation like this. Really liked seeing it. So moving down into the exterior category, the 3.2, where he talks about wall claddings. Again, he has the vegetation in contact with the house. And then the very next line item under that, he has the dirt grade in contact with the wood wall cladding or the wood siding there.
I do want to make mention that tree is growing right into where the downspouts start.
So there's going to be vegetation in the gutters and downspouts. That's no bueno, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, really good job on this inspector to document these things. Let's go down to 3.3, William. Trim, eaves, and fascias. This one, you know, I had to actually blow these pictures up and look at them a little closer, because he's pointing at the area in between the fascia, the roof overhang, and the gutter, which is really hard to see standing on the ground. You know, to me, it looks like, well, I mean, to me, it just looks like normal wear and tear. They had a hard time getting to that area to paint the house. I don't really see an issue there, but one of our core values at our company is you need to know what it is you don't know. And he's not real sure what's going on in there, and so he decided to recommend a branch 3, qualified branch 3 inspection, or a licensed branch 3 inspector to come out, which is also known as a termite inspector, to poke that and to make sure there's no deterioration and whatnot. He just wants to be extra careful. I don't want to say CYA, but...
Well, you can see it looks like there's tubes in the wood.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's hard.
On that left photo.
I blew it up to really look close. I mean, you know, he's pretty thorough. So, I mean, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, err on the side of caution. Doesn't hurt to have a termite inspection come out. We do them. I mean,
but also more. What I'm also thinking about is, are they fastening the gutters to that deteriorated wood?
If it's deteriorated, I mean, it's possible. So, anyway, he recommended further review. Sometimes, you know, you're not sure, make the recommendation, get somebody else out and get a second opinion.
Yeah.
It's good practice.
Hey, I'm going to give the guys a break for a second to tell you something. If you want easy access to tons of interesting, useful, and unusual information like this, hit that subscribe button. While you're at it, give this video a thumbs up. Doing both goes a long way toward helping our channel grow and bringing you videos that are built different.
Okay, let's go to 3.4. Here we have grading, drainage, and planters. And in this line, something a little different we haven't seen in the report so far is there is an illustration from the code check. And that illustration, we used to call them engineered diagrams, but it's essentially an illustration that tells you in a diagram what the code wants you to do, right? It kind of helps clarify what his photos are. Because pictures of just an arrow pointing to the ground doesn't really do it. And so this is something that is really cool to have in your reports. We like putting them in. And we have approval from Doug Hansen, who is the author of the code check, to do that. And then you have his 2 pictures of the grading. You really can't tell from the photos that the grading is not meeting the requirements of the illustration. I personally blew up the photos to check and take a look, and it's a good job by the inspector. It's inadequate grade drainage. But then you go right down to the line item underneath that, William, and you can see there's subsurface drains installed on this property. So not in the area where the inadequate grading is, but looks more over towards the driveway. And this inspector did a really good job of showing those drains and the grates and disclaiming the fact that he's not inspecting those drains because they're underground. You can't see if they're clogged or if they actually do the job they're supposed to do.
I know you have a drain here in your backyard that clogs every rain.
Yeah, it's inadequately sized. I've even had it hydrojetted.
Yeah.
It's much better now, believe it or not. Much better. I probably should hydrojet it again.
And I remember this comment, actually, this is a great comment because this last, I guess, they call it a hurricane. I'm pretty sure nobody really agrees that it was a hurricane, but we got 1 or 2 calls where these drains failed and the house backed up full of water.
Yeah, a couple of people called us and were like, hey, why didn't you tell us this? And it's like, well, read your report. We can't do that. It was on you to verify that. Yeah. It's kind of like just more informational. Look, you won't really know until, nobody's going to know until you buy the house, move in, and it rains and they clog. Yeah. There's no way to, our sewer scope guy doesn't run his camera down that. Yeah. And so they're not, you just got to, maintain them best you can. Yeah. So, okay. So one of the last lines we're going to talk about in the exterior category is going to be the fencing, walls, and gates. He took 4 pictures of the block walls in the backyard and said that they were undermined. The walls are leaning, and you got great photos of that. You can see the exposed footings. And then that last photo there actually does a really good job of showing that the more pink CMU cinder block wall leaning outward away from the home. And so, the one thing here, I kind of wish he would have put in here that was a potential safety concern. Make a little stronger comment on that. We don't want that to fall over and hurt somebody. So
I agree.
Let's move on. Last category we're going to cover today in our podcast, garages. This is something that you and I talked about before the podcast, William, that we should probably start telling all our inspectors to do. I like how Ali is actually putting a picture of the door with it closed.
Yes.
We haven't traditionally done that. It's always been with just the door open and the door opener. But he's now doing it with the door closed and open and the door opener. Most people don't realize this, but that garage door is typically the largest mechanical device you're going to have on your property. And we're not even required to actually test the safeties on that. And so we do, but you're not required to as an inspector. So any thoughts on the door, William?
I think it's a great addition to the report. I usually only take it from the outside with the door closed if it's detached from the home, because normally you can see it from the picture of the front of the house. And maybe he did this because he took a photo with a drone.
Yeah, you're right, maybe. But you know what? It's also a really nice garage door, so it really enhances the property too. A big part about being an inspector is, you don't. This report's not just to tell you all the problems. Yeah. It's to tell you the nice stuff too. It's a complete report of the home. Yeah. And it should depict things that are nice as well as things that maybe are not so nice.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So 4.1, walls, ceilings, and ventilation inside the garage. This one kind of perplexed me a little bit. He has pictures of the concrete curb that supports the walls holding up the garage roof or the walls of the garage, and it looks like there's some holes in the concrete. I did blow up all 3 photos because he says that there's a hole in the firewall. Well, the firewall is typically the sheetrock wood frame wall between the house and the garage. And so the one photo did show me that that hole does go right underneath the fire-resistant rated wall, underneath the gypsum board. So, you know, pretty good job here. This guy's pretty detailed. I don't know that I would call holes in the firewall that concrete. I would just say, you know, deterioration observed at the concrete curb, recommend repair for that.
Well, I'm looking at this. That's not really the curb. That's actually the sealant over it. It went up the drywall.
I see. Well, that's an epoxy.
Yeah, the epoxy. That's the word I'm looking for.
The next, right underneath that in this category, is inadequate framing supports. What he wrote: inadequate framing support at the garage ceiling joist. Then he recommended a contractor, William. So then he's got some pictures there. You can see that the ceiling supports are spliced. Then they've added some extra supports connecting those so they don't sag down to the rafters, and it's just not the right method.
Correct, because roofs aren't designed to be pulled downwards.
Right. Well, the roofs are designed to be held up.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And it looks like they put some 2x4s and they're attaching that splice to the rafter, and now it's no longer being supported as a joist.
And this is more of a ceiling joist. This isn't just a rafter tie.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? And you can splice rafter ties.
Yep.
But not ceiling joists. And these, I don't know if this contractor was thinking this is more of a ceiling rafter tie rather than a ceiling joist. And so leave me your comments on that one. We may be botching this a little bit, but this inspector said it was incorrect and proved me wrong.
Well, that right photo, they just toenailed it.
That's kind of egregious right there.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're doing there. So let's move on. 4.3, fire and service doors. So we have the old service door opening up over a step. I'm suspecting that service door wasn't there when the home was built, and they wanted a door to the backyard. And so they just put a wood step there and put a door. That's incorrect. It's actually, I wish he would have said safety concern. I don't want somebody tripping on that. It's not a safe step. And then next he shows that same door, but from the exterior side, and says it's a garage service door providing direct access to the pool area. Well, once that service door provides access to the pool area, William, it has to meet all the same requirements as a gate going to the pool.
And like you said, that's interesting that you say that, because now this door can't swing the other way. It has to close behind you.
You're right. It has to swing away from the pool, and that's probably why it's swinging over the step. Yep. So if it was swinging outward towards the pool, then that threshold would be considered to be acceptable, right?
Yeah.
Because the height of the threshold is, I don't think it's more than what do you think there? Well, I mean, it might be more. If it's more than 7 inches, then it's still wrong. Hard to tell from the photo, though.
Yeah, it seems like their options are pretty limited here.
Yeah.
They're going to have to pretty much install a landing or maybe an adequate ramp.
Yeah, or a different kind of door,
Yeah.
a different kind of door threshold, or maybe dig out you excavate a threshold on the other side, right, and make it lower. So sometimes you just got to deal with what you got. So
yeah.
Okay, so talking about it though being a door for the pool area, that was going to require you to have it self-close, latch shut. You got to have a latch, 52 inches above the floor?
I believe it's 58.
58? Well, whatever it is, it's got to meet the code for the latch height.
It's high. It's
got to be high so a kid can't get to it, right? And then, it's got to have the latch would probably be on the other side, right? And a little wire coming through.
Yep.
Coming through the wall there. So there's some things that need to be done. On this next photo of the door, he has a fire-resistant rated door. This door is not fire-resistant rated, and he said it's not. Hard to tell from the photo what kind of door it is. I don't know why he took a picture of it other than to show him which door he's talking about. But that's the door that goes inside the house. And it's supposed to be a solid wood core door or rated for the 20 minutes, right?
Yeah, or any solid core door that's, I believe, 1.5 inches thick.
Yeah. So, okay. This is next comment is 4.4, safety warning labels are missing at the garage door spring assembly. I didn't know that you had to have safety warning labels, William. I've never seen that comment in the report. Ollie's doing it, so he must know something we don't. But again, that I would suspect is above and beyond the scope of the inspection. Although BMP code says we have to inspect for safety, but doesn't say we have to inspect for safety labels. I don't know per se, but he's putting it in there, and I think there's a lot of value to his report. I'm pretty impressed with this inspector. The last thing I want to talk about here, since we're having all these fires right now in SoCal, I mean, big fires. And in 2018, we had big fires all over the western part of the United States. And California passed a law that took effect July 1st, 2019. And he has that commentary right here in the report saying garage door openers are required to have a backup battery. And that can be activated in case there's a fire. You can go into the garage. If the power goes out, your garage door will still open because you have a backup battery. So for all of you that are watching this podcast, this is fire season here in the western part of the United States. If you have a garage door opener and you haven't changed your batteries in a few years, you might want to check those, make sure your batteries are good. It's definitely something that can help you with the safety of your home. People did die in 2018 because they got in the cars and just freaked out, got asphyxiated, and
they even had service doors, but the service doors were blocked full of stuff.
Yeah.
So even
power
if
goes out in fires. People don't realize that. You don't have your power. It does go out.
Yeah. So even if you have a service door to go to the side yard of the home, you're still required to have a battery backup. And I've inspected a handful of homes where I tripped the GFI for the door opener because those are required to be GFI protected now.
Okay.
But essentially the reset has to be accessible on the wall. And I tested the door again, and sometimes it still doesn't open.
Oh, really? Okay.
And so I just recommend they have the battery either charged. I think they put a 12-volt battery in there. And that way you get your battery backup going. Because I remember when I first moved into my brand new house, the electric company came and turned off all the power, and my battery backup was the only reason why I was able to leave my house in the morning.
Oh, nice. Yeah, can you imagine, right? And so it's a big deal. It's especially if power goes out. It's nice to be able to get out of the garage. I mean, now the garage is supposed to have a pull-down thing where you can manually open the door.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that can't reach it sometimes, and sometimes it's hard to operate, and you just get stuck.
And it's not even just that. A lot of people don't even know how to operate it.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's what we have today. Appreciate you tuning in. Again, please subscribe to the podcast. Appreciate it if you'd like it. Activate that notifications button. Leave us your comments, and we'll catch you on the next one.